You know that feeling, right? You're finally getting some work done, really in the flow, and then bam, another update notification.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not Windows this time. It's like your browser or maybe your PDF viewer or some tiny tool you totally forgot about.
Happens all the time.
And you deal with that one and then another one pops up. It's just this constant stream of updates all doing their own thing. Honestly, it feels chaotic sometimes. Update fatigue is definitely real. So today, that's what we're diving into, this whole kind of messy world of keeping Windows and all the apps updated. We'll look at what Microsoft might be planning for the future. Looks quite interesting,
Yeah,
actually.
there's some movement there.
And then we'll look at some really powerful tools that, IT folks or even just power users can use right now to get a better handle on things.
Bringing some order to the chaos.
Exactly. So we'll break down the problem, look at that potential big Microsoft shift, then dig into a command line tool and another platform way of managing things. But first, just a quick mention that this deep dive is sponsored by Stonefly. They're leaders in enterprise storage, backup, DR, AI storage, and cloud solutions.
Right.
And if you're specifically looking for really secure, ransomware-proof storage, Stonefly offers air-gapped and immutable options. You can contact sales at stonefly.com to set up a demo.
Good stuff to know about.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Why is this whole update thing on Windows often such a headache, like piecemeal and confusing?
Well, it kind of goes back to how Windows evolved.
Yeah.
Windows Update, traditionally that was for the OS itself.
Right, the core system.
Yeah. And, okay, more recently, maybe apps from the Microsoft Store got pulled in.
Yeah.
But most programs people install, Chrome, Adobe stuff, games, utilities.
The everyday apps.
Exactly. Developers built their own update checkers right into those apps.
Ah, okay, so that's the split.
That's the split. Windows handles its stuff, maybe the store apps, but then every other program has its own little update engine buzzing away.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, that fragmentation causes a whole bunch of problems.
Yeah, I can see that. Like everyone shouting for attention at once.
Pretty much. And think about it. It's actually costly for the developers, too. They're spending time and money building and patching their own update systems.
Instead of working on the main app features.
Right. And for users or the IT teams managing fleets of PCs, you get these totally inconsistent experiences, different pop-ups, different schedules. It's just messy.
And hard to track what's actually up to date.
Totally. We see things like sudden spikes in CPU usage or network traffic when 5 apps decide to update simultaneously. You get confusing notifications. People just click away because they don't know what it is.
Yeah, you just want it gone.
Exactly. And for IT, oh man, they're juggling policies for dozens, maybe hundreds of different apps, trying to push out security patches, meet compliance deadlines. It adds a ton of support overhead.
And big security risks, I imagine.
Huge, because you inevitably get update blind spots. Apps that don't auto-update reliably or where users turned it off because it was annoying. And that unpatched software, that's the low-hanging fruit for attackers.
That makes sense. Especially things like ransomware. They often exploit known vulnerabilities, don't they?
Absolutely. Keeping software patched is like Security 101. Attackers are constantly scanning for systems running old, vulnerable versions of common software. So having a solid, comprehensive update system isn't just nice to have, it's fundamental security.
Okay, so that's the current kind of fragmented picture. Now, what's this big idea from Microsoft you mentioned? How are they thinking about fixing this mess?
So the big vision is to create something much more centralized. A bit like, how things work on Android or iOS, or even macOS to some extent.
Where the OS handles app updates, too.
Exactly. They're working on what they're calling a Windows-native update orchestration platform.
Update orchestration platform. Okay, sounds official. What does that actually mean in practice?
Think of it like building a central update manager, or maybe like an air traffic controller, right into Windows itself. It leverages the existing Windows Update infrastructure, which is pretty solid for OS updates already.
Right.
And the goal is for this one system to handle everything: OS updates, app updates, driver updates, the works.
Okay, now that sounds interesting. How would that actually work? Like, if I'm a developer of some desktop app, how do I plug into this, and what changes for me as a user?
So the idea is developers would need to onboard their applications onto this platform. They'd use specific Windows tools like WinRT APIs or PowerShell commands to register their app.
Okay.
It's basically telling Windows Update, hey, here's my app, here's how you check if there's a new version, and here's the installer or the process to update it.
So they hand over the reins, essentially?
Kinda, yeah. They provide the orchestrator with all the necessary info, app, name, version, the package type, like if it's a modern MSIX or an older setup.exe.
Right, the technical details.
Yeah, and installation deadlines, if a reboot is needed. For those older Win32 apps, they could even provide the executables for download and install and instructions on how to, say, close the app gracefully before updating and relaunch it after.
Okay, that sounds pretty comprehensive.
It aims to be. And once the app is onboarded, the Windows Update Orchestrator takes over the scheduling, and it gets clever about it.
How so?
It looks at things like, are you actively using the computer right now? What's the system load? Is the laptop plugged in? How's the network connection? They're even talking about factoring in sustainable times, like maybe updating when grid energy demand is lower.
Wow,
Right.
okay. That's ambitious.
It is. And importantly, it would handle notifications through the standard Windows Update UI. So no more random pop-ups from everywhere.
Just one consistent notification style. That alone would be nice.
Definitely. Plus, centralized logging for troubleshooting, automatic retries if an update fails. And here's a big one. You'd finally see a single, unified history of all your software updates, OS, apps, everything right in the Windows Settings app.
Okay, that unified history sounds amazing.
And then for IT admins, policy management for app updates could be centralized too. Plus, developers benefit because any future improvements Microsoft makes to the orchestrator automatically apply to their onboarded apps.
That sounds really promising. So, where is this now? Is it live? Can we, kick the tires?
Not quite yet for everyday users. It's currently in a private preview stage, so they're working with specific software developers and product teams to test it out and integrate their apps.
Ah, okay. So early days still.
Yeah, developers who are interested can actually request access to the preview. Microsoft has put out an email address for that, unified orchestrator at service.microsoft.com. But yeah, for the average user, it's still on the horizon.
Okay, so a potential future solution. But, getting there sounds like a huge job. What are the roadblocks? What could go wrong?
Oh, for sure. There are definitely big challenges. Probably the biggest is just getting developer buy-in. Think of all the software out there.
Decades worth.
Exactly. Convincing all those companies, especially ones with older legacy apps, to rewrite their update mechanisms and use these new APIs, that's a massive ask.
Yeah, what happens to apps where the developer just won't or can't do it? Or abandon software?
That's a key question. Those apps would likely remain outside this system, still needing manual updates. So the fragmentation might shrink, but probably won't disappear completely, at least not for a long time.
Makes sense.
Then there's the control issue. Users, and especially IT admins, are used to having some control over when things update, handing it all over to an automated system, even a smart one.
Raises questions about trust and timing.
Precisely. Microsoft will need to offer really granular controls, especially for IT. Things like deferring updates, setting specific deployment windows, testing patches first, maybe even excluding certain critical apps entirely.
Right, you don't want your main business app breaking unexpectedly.
Absolutely not. And the sheer complexity trying to unify updates from the store, traditional installers, maybe even package managers like Wingit, can one system really handle all that smoothly?
Good point.
And security, that's massive. If this platform becomes the way to update software, it also becomes a super high-value target for attackers.
Like, if they could compromise it, they could push malware everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the vetting process for apps joining the platform, the signing requirements, the security of the platform itself, all that needs to be incredibly robust. How that vetting will work is still a bit unclear.
Yeah, crucial details.
And then, the unknowns. What will the final UI look like? What's the real timeline? And the single point of failure risk. If Microsoft's platform has a hiccup, could it stop updates for everything? It concentrates a lot of risk.
So, yeah, a promising idea, a potential fix for a real pain point, but definitely a complex journey ahead with lots of questions still.
That sums it up pretty well.
Okay, so while we're waiting for that unified future, maybe years down the line,
Yeah.
what about today? What can IT pros, or even just, tech-savvy users do right now if they need more control over updates, especially across several machines?
Right, so moving from the future vision to the present, there are definitely powerful tools available. If you're comfortable working with the command line, PowerShell is your friend here.
Okay.
There's a really popular third-party module called PS Windows Update. It's not built into Windows. You have to install it, usually from the PowerShell gallery.
PS Windows Update,
Right.
got it. What does that let you do that, say, clicking check for updates in settings doesn't?
The big difference is scriptable, remote control. It lets you check for updates, install them, remove them, even hide specific updates, all from the command line. And crucially, you can do this on remote computers across your network.
Ah, okay. So great for servers without a GUI or managing lots of machines.
Exactly. Essential for things like Windows Server Core, or when you're automating system builds and need to install updates during that process.
So what kind of commands are we talking about? What can you actually do with it?
Sure. So once you have it installed, you can run something like get wlist that
Huh.
just lists the available updates on the machine you run it on.
Okay, simple enough.
But then you add dash computer name followed by a computer's name or IP address, and suddenly you're checking for updates on that remote machine.
Without logging into it directly? Nice.
Yeah. You can also tell it to check against Microsoft update servers online, not just maybe your internal WSUS server,
Yeah.
if you need to. And you can filter that list, like maybe say not category drivers to ignore driver updates or exclude updates by KB number.
So you can target what you're looking for.
Right. Then for installing, the main command is get winstall. You can do an @acceptall to just install everything it finds.
Be careful with that one, maybe.
Yeah, maybe test first. But you can also target specific updates using the -kbarticle ID parameter. And you get control over reboots with flags like ignore reboot or auto reboot.
Okay, controlling the reboot is important.
Very. And for managing multiple systems, there's a command invoke winstall. That's designed to run installs on a whole list of computers at once. Huge time saver for admins.
I bet. Managing updates one by one is painful.
Totally. The module also lets you see the update history, GitHub U history, uninstall specific updates if they cause problems, remove Windows Update, again using the KBID, and you can hide Windows Update if there's a patch you deliberately don't want installed, maybe a problematic driver or something.
But you can kind of curate the updates offered.
Exactly. You can list hidden updates, unhide them later. It gives you really fine-grained control, all scriptable.
Wow, okay. That sounds significantly more powerful than the standard GUI options, especially for automation or remote management.
It really is. It puts the control back in the hands of the admin or power user, especially for repeatable tasks.
And thinking about managing updates across a whole network, are there broader platform solutions too? You mentioned Action 1 earlier.
Yeah, Action One's a good example of that kind of platform approach. It's designed more for IT teams managing an entire fleet of endpoints. It's cloud-based, aiming to provide a single pane of glass for, among other things, patch management.
So moving beyond just command line on individual machines.
Right. Platforms like Action One typically discover all the computers on your network, maybe linking with Active Directory or similar. Then they give you a centralized dashboard showing the update status everywhere.
All in one place.
All in one place. And critically, this often includes not just the Windows OS updates, but also patches for common third-party applications. Chrome, Zoom, Dropbox, Acrobat Reader, that kind of thing. It tackles that fragmentation problem directly.
So it sees the whole picture, OS and apps.
That's the goal. From that dashboard, IT can see what's missing, where the vulnerabilities are. They can then choose to deploy updates immediately, or more likely, schedule them for specific maintenance windows.
Like overnight or on weekends.
Yeah, exactly. They can approve updates, maybe roll them out in phases. It's about orchestrated, planned patching across the organization.
What are the big selling points for a platform like that?
Well, they often highlight being cloud native, which means easy scaling and accessibility from anywhere. Many offer free tiers for a decent number of machines. Action 1 mentions 200 endpoints free, which is great for smaller businesses or testing. The unified patching across OS and third-party apps is key. They often bundle in real-time vulnerability scanning. And because it's cloud-based, it works for remote workers without needing VPNs. A big angle is preempting ransomware by making it easier to consistently close known security holes.
Right, taking the manual effort and guesswork out of keeping everything patched.
Exactly. It's designed to automate and simplify patch management at scale.
Okay, so pulling this all together, whether you're just a regular user annoyed by pop-ups or an IT admin managing hundreds of PCs, why does understanding all this, the fragmentation, the future UUP, tools like PowerShell, platforms like Action 1, why does it matter?
Well, fundamentally it matters because it impacts how efficient, how secure, and how reliable your computers are. For efficiency, it's about less wasted time fighting updates, fewer interruptions. For IT, it's automating laborious tasks. Security is probably the biggest one. Understanding that unpatched software is a primary attack vector and knowing tools exist to manage patching effectively is crucial for preventing breaches, stopping ransomware.
Like Action 1 emphasizing preempting attacks.
Exactly. That's a direct link. Then there's control. For IT admins, tools like PS Windows Update offer granular, scriptable control for specific scenarios. Platforms like Action 1 provide that broad, centralized control needed for managing a whole fleet.
And for everyone, that future UUP vision from Microsoft.
Right, that promises a potentially much simpler, less confusing experience down the road if they can pull it off.
So knowing about these different pieces helps you make better choices.
Yeah, definitely. You understand the why behind the current mess, you see where things might be heading, and you know there are options today, whether it's rolling up your sleeves with PowerShell or adopting a management platform to take control, improve security, and make the whole update process less painful.
Makes sense. Gives you context and options. All right, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of Windows updates. We've gone from the everyday frustration of fragmented pop-ups, looked into Microsoft's ambitious plan for a unified future, and explored some powerful tools like PowerShell's PS Windows Update module and platforms such as Action One that are helping manage the chaos right now.
Quite a journey through the update landscape.
Indeed. So here's something to maybe chew on as you go. If Microsoft does succeed in centralizing updates for almost all software through a single Windows platform, what does that level of centralized control mean in the long run? For security, sure, but also for software choice, for user control. Something to think about.
Interesting question.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And one final reminder, this deep dive was sponsored by Stonefly, a leader in enterprise storage, backup, and disaster recovery, AI storage, and cloud solutions. If you need secure, ransomware-proof storage like air-gapped or immutable solutions, check them out. Contact sales at stonefly.com to schedule a demo.